We've been reading in our New Testament readings, Gospel of Luke. I think I've told you this before. Gospel of Luke, my favorite book. If I could only have two books of the Bible, one in the Old Testament, one in the New. Luke in the New. I'd take the Psalms in the Old. I would miss other chapters and other books, but that would cover it, I think, if I was down to two books. Anyways, in the 5th chapter of Luke, we've read that yesterday, I believe, we have a great account of Jesus interacting with Peter. We all know who Peter was. Loyal to the end. Bombastic. I always look at Peter as like being a strong man, a fisherman, gruff, rough and tumble, wasn't afraid to speak his mind. And kind of doing a little research for this exhortation, I was looking into, kind of interactions with Peter and Jesus. And it said that there are 17 recorded interactions with Jesus and Peter, specifically. 17, that's a lot. Recorded for us in the 4 Gospels. And we're not going to look at all 17, okay? Because that would be like if I did 5 minutes on everyone. What's some quick math on that? 85 minutes, Butch? We don't have that kind of time. So I'll take a look at a couple of them, a few of them that speak to me. I kind of love their interaction. I love the message. I love the love that and the patience that Jesus shows to Peter and to all of his disciples, and quite frankly, he shows to us as well. When he's talking to Peter and his disciples and they're not getting something, Jesus was patient. He was sharp with them and direct. Are ye also without understanding? O you of little faith, why did you doubt? He says. So let's take a look at Luke chapter 5. It's the beginning of Jesus' ministry. Word is getting around, particularly up in the northern part of Israel. Man, there is this prophet and teacher. You got to come see him, Jesus of Nazareth. People are pressing against him, right? That's used a lot in Luke, this idea of pressing against Jesus, the physical nature of his ministry. We sometimes don't think about that. Jesus was in shape mentally and physically. And his body was running really on a limited amount of food. He was fasting a lot, we know. And let's be honest, brothers and sisters, in ancient Israel, particularly up in the north, there wasn't a whole lot of extra food to go around. So Jesus he was in shape. His mind was in shape. His physical body was being worked every single day. Jesus wasn't a guy to kind of hang out in a nice house, right? He even makes mentions of this. The foxes have holes and the birds of the air have nests, but the Son of Man has no place to lay his head. He's out there. And so they're pressing on Jesus to hear him, maybe to touch him. And so Jesus in his wisdom says, hey, let me grab one of these boats. I'm going to pull out and I'm going to preach to everybody. The acoustics of the water would have helped with this as well, would have allowed more people to kind of come together. But he used Peter's boat. And so Jesus, in order to kind of make amends to Peter for using his boat, he says, hey, go back out onto the lake and let your nets down. And Peter's like, I spent all day, there's nothing out there. Right? He's frustrated. This is his livelihood. Kind of like, I would get up, I'd go down, to Dighton, Rehoboth, and no one's there. That would be actually awesome, but he's already done it. He says to Jesus, I've already done it. You don't know. I'm a fisherman. I know. You don't know. But out of respect for Jesus, Peter says, because you've asked me to do it, I'm going to do it. And he goes out there and just a massive amount of fish. He starts pulling up. He has to call other boats. It's a massive haul. to the point where the nets are breaking. It's almost too much. And there's actually a time we're going to look at where I think it says Andrew, Peter, and John, they were mending their nets, right? Well, this happened all the time. You get one of these big schools and you run into your nets. You can break your nets pretty easily. So this whole event, they're pulling up massive amounts, thousands and thousands of fish. And Peter, it says, is astonished. Couldn't believe his eyes. This is unbelievable. And you can imagine, brothers and sisters, can't we? Just the spectacle of this whole thing. Jesus in a boat, thousands and thousands of people clamoring to hear him, to touch him, to be healed by the Son of God. And then on a personal level, he tells Peter, go take your boat, and he pulls in. Just think about the money, too, that Peter's getting, right? The generosity of Jesus. Ever think of that? Here's 5 fish. Peter, thanks, right? No. He gives him a massive amount for the use of his boat. And Peter comes to Christ. And it says he falls down at Jesus' knees. Think about this. He falls, this rough and tumble guy, this Galilean, doesn't take anything from anybody. And he falls down at the feet of Jesus. And he says, depart from me. Go away. For I am a sinful man, O Lord. And it's every time I read it, it's just so powerful to me. Because we're sinful too, brothers and sisters. And there's sometimes when we feel far away from God. And in our distress, and maybe sometimes in our hopelessness, we say, depart from me. I'm not worthy of you. I'm a filthy sinner. But Christ doesn't depart. He says, fear not. Don't be afraid, Peter. I'm going to make you fishers of men. What an exchange, brothers and sisters. And it hooked them. It hooked Peter. Peter was in. But this is not the first time. Let's take a look at in John, the first chapter. I got to keep track of time because I can get in the weeds pretty quick on this one. All right, John chapter 1, Gospel of. In verse 41. Verse 40. One of the two which heard John speak and followed him was Andrew, Simon Peter's brother. He first findeth his own brother Simon and said unto him, we have found the Messiah, which is being interpreted the Christ. And he brought him to Jesus. And when Jesus beheld him, he said, you are Simon, the son of Joah. Thou shalt be called Cephas, which is by interpretation a stone, right? And there's a foreshadow, isn't there, of the statement of the Apostle Peter, right? That's a pretty good nickname, right? He also had another nickname too. He was what? One of the sons of thunder? Or no, the sons of Zebedee were the sons of thunder. That's a pretty good nickname too. Like, what's your nickname? I'm one of the sons of thunder. There's bad nicknames out there as well, right? We've all know kids with bad nicknames, which you're like, ooh, that's not a great nickname. This was a pretty cool nickname that Jesus gave to Peter. You are Cephas. Okay, that's the first interaction that actually Jesus has with Peter. Gives him a nickname straight away. I'm not calling you Peter. Cephas. Okay. So let's take a look at Luke, the 4th chapter. Go back to Luke on this one. Luke, the 4th chapter, verse 38. So he's up in, the Galilee. He's verse 32, verse 31. And came down to Capernaum, a city of Galilee, and taught them on the Sabbath days. And they were astonished at his doctrine, for his word was with power. He heals the man with the spirit of an unclean devil. In verse 38, and he arose out of the synagogue and entered into Peter's house. And Simon's wife's mother, Peter's mother-in-law, was taken with a great fever, and they besought him for her. And he stood over her and rebuked the fever, and it left her. So let's just keep that in mind, okay? Let's keep our finger here in Luke, and let's turn to Matthew, the 8th chapter. In verse 14, we have another telling of it. And when Jesus came into Peter's house, he saw his mother-in-law laid in the bed and was sick of a fever.
What verse?
Verse 14, Matthew 8, 14, 15. And he touched her hand, and the fever left her. So Jesus stands over her. From Matthew and Mark, the account says that he also touched her hand. The power of Jesus' touch. That's another great excitation. All the references to Jesus touching somebody. We know that when he came down from the Beatitudes, right, the Sermon on the Mount, a leper came and said, heal me. What did Jesus do? It says he touched him. So he takes all the spiritual aspects of the Beatitudes and then shows the Beatitudes in action by making himself unclean, touching him. He touches Peter's mother-in-law as well. And what does Peter's mother-in-law do? And she arose and ministered unto them. She was sick. Jesus comes in, and immediately when she's feeling better, Peter's mother-in-law starts ministering, or, feeding Jesus, making sure Jesus is comfortable. It says immediately she got up. I feel better now. How many people we know like that, right? They're always doing something. But also, brothers and sisters, sometimes, we talk about the touch of Jesus, but what about Peter? Peter actually had brought the mother-in-law into his home. And this is also very common in the ancient world. That was a command in the law, wasn't it? That you were supposed to take care of the fatherless and the widow. And Peter's mother-in-law was a widow. That's why she was living with them. And so Peter is living the law in action. Right? Paul talks about this. Can't remember the letter, but he says, if you don't take care of your own household, you have denied the faith. You are worse than an infidel, Paul says. And so, old saying, charity begins at home. And here was Peter showing love to his mother-in-law. Mother-in-laws are great, right? But listen, there's old jokes, isn't there? Sometimes mother-in-laws and son-in-laws, we can get into fights. It can be a tough situation. You don't see eye to eye. Maybe the mother-in-law is always involved in the business, Maybe the husband, right, the son-in-law, is not doing things that he should be doing, and the mother-in-law is letting him know, giving him the business. There's all kinds of different dynamics that can come with the mother-in-law. But this one was a good one. This was a good relationship. And so I think that's an excitation to us. What's our relationships like with our family members? Whether it's mother-in-laws, what's our relationship like certainly with our wives or our husbands, our children, our extended families? What's our relationships like with each other? So that idea of, boom, I'm up, fever's gone. All right, what do you need? What do you need? Oh, you need some bread. You gotta get some fish for you. Don't worry. I got the sauce going. The sauce is on the stove. Couple more here, couple more. In Matthew, the 16th chapter. Actually, let's stay in Luke for this one. Let's stay in Luke, in the 9th chapter. Verse 18. Verse 18, 9th chapter of the Gospel of Luke. And it came to pass, as he was alone praying, his disciples were with him, and he asked them, saying, Whom say the people that I am? They answering said, John the Baptist, but some say Elijah, and others say that one of the old prophets is risen again. He said unto them, But who do you say that I am? Peter answered, The Christ of God. And he straitly charged them and commanded them to tell no man that thing. In Matthew 16, there's a little more. When Jesus came to the region of Caesarea Philippi, he asked his disciples, Who do people say the Son of Man is? Simon Peter answered, You are the Messiah, the Son of the living God. Jesus replied, Blessed are you, Simon, son of Jonah, for this was not revealed to you by flesh and blood, but by my Father in heaven. And I tell you that you are Peter, and on this rock I will build my church. There's also another event, too, where Peter makes this public announcement of his faith. In John, the 6th chapter. You know, this 6th chapter is about Jesus feeding the 5,000, but then it's the discourse about the bread and the wine. Eat my bread. Eat my body, Jesus says. And it says that from that time on, many of his disciples stopped following him because it was too hard of a saying. They didn't understand it. You know, a lot of them went away. Verse 60, Many therefore of his disciples, when they had heard this, said, This is an hard saying. Who can hear it? Verse 66, From that time many of his disciples went back and walked no more with him. Then said Jesus unto the 12, Will you also go away? Then Simon Peter answered him, Lord, to whom shall we go? You have the words of eternal life, and we believe and are sure that thou art the Christ, the Son of the living God. What a statement, brothers and sisters. What a statement. He did it twice. You know, it was Peter that was always speaking for the disciples. He was the leader. He always had something to say. He was always so confident in his abilities. And he was. It was Peter that said these things. But Peter's going to say other things too. He's going to deny Jesus 3 times. And that's the up and downs of our lives, brothers and sisters. There's sometimes when, man, oh man, I will shout from the mountaintops about my faith in Christ. I have no fear of anything that would happen in this life. Some days are like that. But there's other days where I'm denying Jesus left and right. I'm doing things I shouldn't do. I'm acting in a certain way that I shouldn't act. So that's Peter. That's all of us. You know, there's some times where I will walk on the water with Jesus. No problem. Wind in the waves don't faze me. But there's other days I am sinking like a stone. And yelling for Christ to save me, for I sink. Let's end with this. You know, Peter had a chance, you know, he says, and when you are, he says, Jesus says this, Satan desires to have you, that he may sift you like wheat. But I have prayed for you, Jesus says, and when you are converted, strengthen my brethren. We are sifted every day, brothers and sisters. Every day we are sifted. And so, like Peter, we think we're a lot stronger than we are, right? We trust in the strength of our own arm. But Peter needed to be ground to dust in order to be revived again. And that's what Jesus does. 3 times Peter denied Christ. 3 times Jesus asked Peter, Simon Peter, do you love me? And so that's the redemption. No matter how many times we are ground to dust, no matter how many times we sink, Christ will not depart. He is here till the end of time. And so Peter had a chance to kind of put this in writing, and so we're gonna end with his writings on Christ, and it's in 1 Peter the 5th chapter. Second chapter of 1 Peter. Verse 21, second chapter, 1 Peter. Peter, all of his life, it's in the past, right? He's now a bishop of the early day ecclesias. He's got a lot in his mind. He's busy. But he has all of these words of exhortation to these new followers of Christ. He says in verse 21, for even hereunto were you called, because Christ also suffered for us, leaving us an example that you should follow his steps, who did no sin, neither was guile found in his mouth, when he was reviled not again. When he suffered, he threatened not, but committed himself to him that judges righteously, who his own self bare our sins in his own body on the tree, that we, being dead to sin, should live unto righteousness, by whose stripes ye were healed.